The old school building stood tall against the morning sky, its brick walls warming in the early sunlight. For most students, River Creek Middle School was just another place to learn and hang out with friends. But for one girl, it felt more like a daily mountain to climb. Song Li Chen walked through the hallways with her eyes down, clutching her backpack straps tightly. At 12 years old, she'd mastered the art of being almost invisible. Not completely invisible, that would be better. Being almost invisible meant people still sometimes noticed you, but only to point out how different you were. "Did you finish the math homework?" a boy asked his friend as Song Li passed by. "Yeah, it was super easy," the friend replied with a laugh. "Only took me like 10 minutes. Song Li kept walking, pretending not to hear. The math homework had taken her 2 hours last night. Not because she struggled with numbers, actually, she was quite good at them. But because English wasn't her first language, and the word problem still tripped her up sometimes. Her family had moved from China 3 years ago. Her father had come first, saving every penny from his restaurant job until he could bring Song Li and her mother over. "America is the land of opportunity," he would say during their video calls. "You will get the best education there." What he hadn't mentioned was how lonely it would feel. Song Li slipped into her homeroom class and sat in her usual spot, 3rd row, far right corner, next to the window. Perfect for looking out when the teacher wasn't watching. Perfect for daydreaming about being somewhere else. "Good morning, everyone." Mrs. Patterson walked in with her usual bright smile. "Before we start our day, I have an exciting announcement. The school talent show is coming up in 4 weeks. Sign-up sheets are by the door. I hope to see many of you participate." A buzz went through the classroom. Talent show. Song Li had seen one last year, watching from the back row as classmates sang pop songs, performed magic tricks, and showed off gymnastics routines. The audience had clapped and cheered for everyone. What would that feel like? "Are you going to sign up?" asked Lily, the girl who sat in front of Song Li. Lily was one of the few people who regularly talked to her. Not exactly a friend, but friendly enough. "Oh no," Song Li shook her head quickly. "I don't have any talents," Lily shrugged. "Everyone's good at something." The morning classes passed in their usual blur. Song Li was decent at science and excellent at math, though she rarely raised her hand to answer questions. Her English teacher had written on her last report card, "Song Li shows promise but needs to participate more in class discussions." How could she explain that each time she spoke, she heard her own accent hanging in the air, making her different from everyone else, that she rehearsed sentences in her head 3 times before saying them out loud, and sometimes still got the words mixed up? Lunchtime came, and Song Li found her usual spot at the end of a table, not quite with anyone but not completely alone either. She unpacked the lunch her mother had prepared, rice, vegetables, and a little chicken in a thermos that still steamed when she opened it. A group of girls walked by, led by Tiffany Harper. They all wore similar outfits, jeans with fashionable tops, sparkly accessories, and expensive sneakers. Tiffany glanced at Song Li's lunch. What's that smell?" she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Her friends giggled on cue. Song Li quickly closed her thermos, her appetite suddenly gone. She'd asked her mother to pack American lunches before, sandwiches or pizza. But her mom insisted home-cooked food was healthier. "Be proud of our food," she'd say. "It's part of who we are." Easy for her mother to say. She didn't have to sit in this cafeteria every day. After lunch came the class Song Li both loved and dreaded most: music. She loved it because music spoke a language everyone understood. She dreaded it because it also highlighted what her family didn't have: money for instruments or lessons. The music room was the brightest in the school, with large windows and walls painted yellow. Instruments lined the shelves: recorders, small drums, tambourines, and triangles for students to use. But the centerpiece was the grand piano that stood in the corner, gleaming black and imposing. "Today we'll continue learning about famous composers," said Mr. Rivera, the music teacher. "Last week we talked about Mozart. Today we'll learn about Chopin." As Mr. Rivera played recordings of Chopin's music, Song Li felt something stir inside her. The notes seemed to paint pictures in her mind: rain falling on a quiet lake, leaves dancing in the wind, a story told without words. "Chopin is considered one of the greatest composers for the piano," Mr. Rivera explained. "His music requires not just technical skill but deep emotion." Song Li glanced at the piano in the corner. What would it feel like to create such beautiful sounds? To make people feel things just by pressing keys in the right order? After class, as other students rushed out for recess, Song Li lingered behind. She often did this, waiting until everyone left so she could look at the piano up close. She never touched it. That wasn't allowed. But she would stand nearby, studying the black and white keys, imagining. What Song Li never told anyone at school was that she came from a family of musicians. Her grandmother had been a famous pianist in China before the Cultural Revolution changed everything. During those difficult years, playing Western classical music became dangerous. Her grandmother's piano was taken away, and she was sent to work in the countryside. By the time things changed again, her grandmother's hands had been damaged by years of hard labor. She could no longer play the way she once had, but the love of music remained, passed down to Song Li through stories and hummed melodies. "Your hands," her grandmother would say, holding Song Li's small fingers in her wrinkled ones during video calls from China. "They are pianist's hands. Long fingers, strong, like mine used to be." At home, they couldn't afford a piano. Their apartment was tiny, and every extra dollar went into savings for someday buying a house. Instead, Song Li's grandmother had taught her using a paper keyboard, just a drawing of piano keys that Song Li had colored, carefully and laminated at the library. "Feel the music in your mind," her grandmother would instruct during their calls. "Your fingers know where to go." Sometimes on weekends, Song Li's mother would take her to the community center where there was an old upright piano that anyone could use. There, for an hour or two, Song Li would finally get to press real keys and hear real sounds. Her fingers moved as if they had always known what to do, but no one at school knew this. Here she was just the quiet Asian girl who barely spoke. Mr. Rivera appeared from the supply closet, startling Song Li out of her thoughts. "Still here, Song Li? Did you need something?" he asked kindly. "No, sir," she replied quickly. "Just thinking." He followed her gaze to the piano. "Do you play?" She shook her head, though it wasn't entirely true. She played, but not properly, not the way others would count as really playing. "Well, it's never too late to learn," Mr. Rivera smiled. "The piano is a friend that's always waiting for you." As she left the music room, Song Li caught sight of the talent show sign-up sheet on the wall. Names were already filling the lines. Tiffany Harper would be singing a popular song. The twins from 8th grade would perform a dance routine. Josh from her math class would demonstrate karate. For a brief, wild moment, Song Li imagined adding her name to that list. What if she played one of the pieces her grandmother had taught her? What if people heard her and didn't laugh? What if they clapped? The thought vanished as quickly as it had come. Who was she kidding? She'd never even played on a proper piano regularly. The community center's upright, with its slightly out-of-tune keys and sticky pedals, was nothing like the gleaming grand piano in the music room. Besides, everyone would stare at her. They already noticed her different lunch and her different accent. Standing on a stage would just give them more reasons to point out how she didn't fit in. That evening at home, Song Li helped her mother prepare dinner in their small kitchen. Their apartment was neat and clean, with furniture bought second-hand but carefully maintained. On the wall hung a single photograph of her grandmother sitting at a piano, young and beautiful, her fingers poised above the keys. "How was school today?" her mother asked in Mandarin. "Fine," Song Li answered in English, then switched to Mandarin. "They announced the talent show. Will you join?" Her mother stirred the pot of soup on the stove. Song Li shook her head. "I don't think so." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "Your grandmother called earlier. She wants to talk to you after dinner." Later, sitting in front of the computer screen, Song Li smiled at the familiar face of her grandmother, whose eyes crinkled with joy at seeing her granddaughter. "Ah, there's my little pianist," she said in Mandarin. "Have you been practicing?" Song Li nodded. "On the paper keyboard. And we went to the community center last weekend." Her grandmother's eyes grew serious. "Song Li, your mother tells me there's a performance at your school." "It's just a talent show, grandmother. For kids who can already do things well." "And you don't think you play well?" Song Li looked down. "The piano at school is different. It's big and perfect. Everyone would be watching. I would make mistakes." Her grandmother was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned closer to the camera. "Let me tell you something. When I was young, before everything changed, I played in front of hundreds of people. And yes, sometimes I made mistakes. But that's not what people remembered. They remembered how the music made them feel. She held up her hands, the fingers slightly bent from years of hard work. These hands can no longer make the music I hear in my heart. But yours can. Music doesn't care if you're Chinese or American, if you speak perfect English or not. Music only asks if you have something to say. Songli felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. I'm scared, she whispered. Of course you are. Her grandmother smiled gently. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do something even though you are afraid. That night, lying in bed, Songli thought about the talent show, about the piano in the music room, about her grandmother's hands that could no longer play. She thought about being almost invisible and wondered what it would be like just once to be truly seen. The next morning, Songli woke up earlier than usual. Her grandmother's words from last night's video call still echoed in her mind. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do something even though you are afraid. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, practicing her smile. Not too wide, that would look fake. Just a small lift of her lips, enough to seem friendly but not desperate. Maybe if she smiled more, kids at school would stop seeing her as the strange quiet girl. Songli, breakfast is ready, her mother called from the kitchen. Their morning routine was always the same. Her father had already left for the restaurant where he worked long hours as a cook. Her mother prepared a traditional breakfast, rice porridge with pickled vegetables and a hard-boiled egg, while listening to Chinese news on her phone. Did you sleep well? Her mother asked, placing the steaming bowl in front of Songli. Yes, Songli replied, though she had tossed and turned most of the night, thinking about the talent show, about the piano, about being brave. Her mother studied her face. You look tired. Is something bothering you? Songli stirred her porridge. Mom, do you think I play the piano well? Her mother's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Of course. Your grandmother says you have natural talent. Why do you ask? There's a talent show at school. Understanding dawned on her mother's face. She sat down across from Songli. And you want to play in it? I don't know, Songli admitted. Maybe. Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Your grandmother would be so proud. But we don't have a real piano to practice on, Songli pointed out. The community center only lets us use theirs on weekends for an hour. Her mother was quiet for a moment, thinking. Let me see what I can do. The school day passed in its usual blur of classes, hallways to navigate, and lunch periods to endure. But today Songli felt different, like she was carrying a small secret flame inside her chest. Not quite confidence, but something close to it, something that might grow. When music class came, she paid special attention as Mr. Rivera talked about different piano techniques. The pedals are very important, he explained to the class. The right pedal is called the sustain pedal. It allows notes to continue ringing even after you've lifted your fingers from the keys. Songli knew this from her grandmother's teachings, but hearing it explained while looking at an actual piano made it more real somehow. She imagined pressing those pedals, feeling the mechanism work beneath her feet. After class, she lingered again, staring at the piano. Mr. Rivera noticed. Songli, you seem very interested in the piano lately, he said, organizing some sheet music on his desk. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Have you ever played before? A little, she admitted softly. My grandmother taught me, but we don't have a piano at home. Mr. Rivera's face brightened. Well, would you like to try this one? Her heart jumped to her throat. No, why not? He gestured to the grand piano. No one's using it. Songli approached the instrument carefully as if it might run away if she moved too quickly. The black and white keys gleamed under the classroom lights. This close, she could see her reflection in the polished wood. Go ahead, Mr. Rivera encouraged. Just try a few notes. With trembling fingers, Songli pressed a key. A clear, perfect C note rang out. It sounded so much better than the old piano at the community center. She pressed another key, then another, playing a simple scale her grandmother had taught her. Very good, Mr. Rivera said, sounding genuinely surprised. You have proper finger positioning. Who did you say taught you? My grandmother. In China before the Cultural Revolution, she was a concert pianist. Mr. Rivera's eyes widened with interest. That's fascinating. Would you like to play something more? I can stay for a few minutes. Songli hesitated. Then gathering her courage, she sat down on the bench. It felt too big for her, but she scooted forward until her feet could reach the pedals. She placed her hands in position and closed her eyes for a moment, remembering her grandmother's instructions. Feel the music in your mind first, then let it flow through your fingers. She began to play. Not a simple exercise, but Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, one of the pieces her grandmother had taught her using the paper keyboard. Her fingers moved from memory, finding each key as if guided by an invisible force. The music filled the room, sweet and melancholy. She made mistakes, quite a few of them. Some notes came out too loud, others too soft. The pedaling wasn't perfect, but the melody was recognizable, the emotion behind it real. When she finished, she looked up to see Mr. Rivera staring at her with his mouth slightly open. "Song Lee," he said finally. "That was... How long have you been playing?" She shrugged, suddenly embarrassed. "I don't really play on a real piano much. Just sometimes at the community center. Mostly I practice on a paper keyboard." "A paper keyboard?" Mr. Rivera looked confused. "It's just a drawing of piano keys. My grandmother taught me to hear the music in my head while I practiced the finger movements." Mr. Rivera shook his head in amazement. "And you learned to play Chopin like that? With just occasional access to a real piano?" Song Lee nodded, not sure if she had done something wrong. "That's extraordinary," he said. "You have a real gift." He paused, then asked, "Have you thought about signing up for the talent show?" The small flame of courage in Song Lee's chest flickered. "I don't think I'm good enough." "You're more than good enough," Mr. Rivera insisted. "With a little practice on a real piano, you could be wonderful." He glanced at his watch. "I have a meeting now, but the music room is open during lunch period tomorrow if you want to practice. I could help you prepare a piece for the show." After he left, Song Lee sat at the piano for a few more minutes, lightly touching the keys without pressing them down. The thought of playing in front of the whole school made her stomach twist into knots. But another part of her, a part that sounded like her grandmother, whispered that this was her chance to be brave. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't hear the door open. A burst of laughter made her jump. Tiffany Harper and 3 of her friends stood in the doorway staring at Song Lee. "What are you doing?" Tiffany asked, her voice sharp with surprise. Song Lee shot up from the piano bench. "Nothing. I was just leaving." "Were you touching the piano?" One of Tiffany's friends pointed. "You can't do that without permission." "Mr. Rivera said," Song Lee began, but Tiffany cut her off. "Mr. Rivera would never let someone mess with the piano who doesn't know how to play." Tiffany walked over, looking Song Lee up and down. "Do you even know what this is worth? It's like thousands of dollars." "I know what it is," Song Lee said quietly. "Oh, really?" Tiffany raised an eyebrow. "So you're a pianist now? Let's hear you play something." The other girls giggled. Song Lee felt her face growing hot. "I have to go," she mumbled, trying to edge toward the door. But Tiffany moved to block her path. "No, I want to hear the piano prodigy play." She made an exaggerated gesture toward the instrument. "Please wow us with your talent." The other girls were openly laughing now. Song Lee felt tears threatening to spill. This was exactly what she had feared. Being laughed at. Being made to feel small and foolish. Leave her alone. "Tiffany." Everyone turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "Mind your own business," Tiffany snapped. "Mr. Rivera sent me to get his lesson planner," Lily said, walking into the room. "And I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be happy to know you're in here bothering people." Tiffany rolled her eyes. "Whatever. We were just having fun." She turned to leave, but not before giving Song Lee one last mocking look. "Good luck with your concert career." As the girls left, their laughter echoed down the hallway. Song Lee stood frozen, her hands clenched at her sides. "Are you okay?" Lily asked. Song Lee nodded, not trusting her voice. "Don't listen to them," Lily said. "Tiffany's just mean because her dad makes her take piano lessons and she hates it. She's terrible at it too." Song Lee managed a small smile. "Thanks for helping me." "No problem." Lily hesitated, then asked, "Can you really play? I heard Mr. Rivera telling another teacher that there's a new student with amazing talent." "I'm not amazing," Song Lee said quickly. "I just know a few pieces." "Are you going to be in the talent show?" The question hung in the air. After what had just happened, the idea seemed even more impossible. "And yet, I don't know," Song Lee said honestly. That evening when Song Lee got home, she found her mother waiting with a surprise. "Mrs. Zhang from apartment 3B, her mother explained excitedly. "Her son used to take piano lessons, but he quit last year. She says we can use their digital piano any day after school until 6 p.m., when her husband gets home from work." "Really?" Song Lee couldn't believe it. A real piano, well, a digital one but still with actual keys that made sounds, that she could practice on regularly. Yes. I already thanked her and said you would start tomorrow. Her mother beamed with pride. I told her my daughter is going to perform in the school talent show. Song Li's stomach dropped. Mom, I never said I would definitely do it. But this is your chance, her mother insisted, to show everyone the gift you have. The gift your grandmother gave you. Later that night, Song Li called her grandmother to tell her about everything that had happened. Mr. Rivera's encouragement, Tiffany's mockery, Lily's kindness, and the borrowed digital piano. So will you perform in this talent show? Her grandmother asked when Song Li had finished her story. I'm scared, Song Li admitted. What if I make mistakes? What if people laugh? Her grandmother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, when I was young, before my first big performance, my teacher told me something I never forgot. She said, when you play with your heart, even wrong notes sound right. But Tiffany and her friends will always find reasons to laugh, her grandmother finished gently. Whether you play or not, so you might as well play. That night, Song Li lay awake thinking about pianos and talent shows and bravery. She thought about her grandmother, who had lost her chance to share her music with the world. She thought about Mr. Rivera's kind encouragement and her mother's proud smile. And somewhere in the darkness, just before sleep finally claimed her, she made her decision. The next morning, Song Li stood in front of the school notice board, staring at the talent show sign-up sheet. Several names were already listed, including Tiffany Harper's in large looping handwriting that took up 2 lines. Song Li's hand trembled as she held the pen. What if she failed? What if she forgot the notes in the middle of the performance? What if everyone laughed? But then she remembered her grandmother's words. When you play with your heart, even wrong notes sound right. Taking a deep breath, she wrote her name in small, neat letters. Song Li Chen. Next to it, under talent, she carefully wrote, piano, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. You're doing it? A voice asked behind her. Song Li turned to see Lily looking at the sign-up sheet with surprise. I think so, Song Li replied, her voice barely above a whisper. That's awesome, Lily said with genuine enthusiasm. I didn't know you played piano. Not many people do, Song Li admitted. As they walked to class together, Lily asked, so how long have you been playing? Song Li hesitated. How could she explain the paper keyboard, the scattered hours at the community center, the techniques learned through video calls with her grandmother? My whole life, in a way, she finally said. But not on a real piano very often. Lily looked confused but didn't press further. The school day seemed to fly by faster than usual. During lunch period, instead of going to the cafeteria, Song Li headed to the music room. Mr. Rivera had said she could practice there, and she didn't want to waste a single minute. To her surprise, Mr. Rivera was already there, sorting through sheet music. Song Li, he smiled when he saw her. I was hoping you'd come. I found some sheet music that might help you. He held out a worn book. It's Chopin's Nocturne. The one you played yesterday is in here. Song Li took the book carefully. She'd never had actual sheet music before. Her grandmother had taught her to play by ear, showing her the notes on the paper keyboard and having her memorize the patterns. Thank you, she said, feeling the weight of the book in her hands. The talent show is in 3 weeks, Mr. Rivera said. If you practice every day, you'll be more than ready. And remember, it's normal to make mistakes, especially when you're nervous. The most important thing is to keep going. Song Li nodded, sitting down at the piano. The sheet music looked intimidating, a forest of notes and symbols. But when she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play, the music came to her naturally, as if her hands remembered what her eyes didn't yet understand. After school, instead of taking the bus home, Song Li walked to Mrs. Zhang's apartment. Her mother had arranged for her to practice there from 3:30 to 6:00 p.m. every weekday. Mrs. Zhang, a small woman with kind eyes, welcomed her warmly. Your mother tells me you're very talented, she said, showing Song Li to the living room where the digital piano stood. My son never had the patience for practice. The piano just collected dust for years. The digital piano wasn't as grand as the one at school, but it had weighted keys that felt almost like a real piano. Song Li sat down and adjusted the bench. Would you like some water or tea before you start? Mrs. Zhang asked. Water, please, Song Li replied politely. As Mrs. Zhang went to the kitchen, Song Li began to play. The familiar melody filled the small apartment, and for a while, she forgot about the talent show, about Tiffany Harper, about being the quiet girl whom nobody noticed. There was only the music. When she finished, she heard clapping and looked up to see Mrs. Zhang standing in the doorway, a glass of water in one hand. "Beautiful," the older woman said, her eyes slightly wet. "It reminds me of home." For the next week, Song Li fell into a new routine. School, then practice at Mrs. Zhang's apartment, then home for dinner and homework, followed by a video call with her grandmother to report on her progress. "How is the sheet music?" her grandmother asked during one call. "Difficult," Song Li admitted, "but Mr. Rivera is helping me understand it better." Her grandmother nodded approvingly. "It's good to learn properly. I wish I could be there to help you." "Me too," Song Li said, feeling a sudden pang of sadness. Her grandmother had never seen her play on a real piano. On Friday afternoon, when Song Li arrived at Mrs. Zhang's apartment, she found her mother there too, sitting on the couch with a mysterious smile. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Song Li asked, confused. "I have a surprise for you," her mother said, standing up. "Close your eyes." Feeling both curious and nervous, Song Li closed her eyes. She heard some movement, then her mother said, "Okay, open them." When she opened her eyes, Song Li saw her mother holding a tablet. On the screen was her grandmother's face beaming at her. "Grandmother," Song Li exclaimed. "Now I can watch you practice," her grandmother explained. "Your mother and Mrs. Zhang set it up. We can do this every Friday." Tears sprang to Song Li's eyes. "Really?" Her mother nodded. "We thought you might need extra help as the talent show gets closer. And who better than your teacher?" That afternoon's practice was the best one yet. With her grandmother watching and occasionally offering suggestions, more feeling in the middle section or don't rush the tempo there, Song Li played with new confidence. After she finished, her grandmother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You've improved so much. I'm so proud of you, Song Li." Those words warmed Song Li more than any applause ever could. The following Monday at school, Song Li headed to the music room during lunch as usual. But when she arrived, Tiffany Harper was already there, sitting at the piano, plunking out a simple melody with one finger. Song Li froze in the doorway, unsure what to do. She could just leave and come back tomorrow, but no. This was her time to practice. Mr. Rivera had arranged it specially for her. "Excuse me," she said, stepping into the room. "I'm supposed to practice now." Tiffany looked up, her eyes narrowing when she saw Song Li. "Oh, it's you, the piano prodigy." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Mr. Rivera said I could practice here during lunch," Song Li explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "Well, I got here first," Tiffany said, turning back to the piano. She hit a few more random notes, deliberately off-key. Song Li felt her heart racing. She could feel the old familiar urge to disappear, to make herself small and unnoticed. But something else was growing stronger inside her. Determination. "Please," she said, more firmly this time. "I only have 20 minutes to practice before my next class." Tiffany swiveled on the bench to face her. "What makes you think you deserve to use this piano more than anyone else? Just because Mr. Rivera feels sorry for you?" The words stung, but Song Li stood her ground. "He doesn't feel sorry for me. He's helping me prepare for the talent show." Tiffany laughed. "You're actually going through with that? This should be entertaining." Just then, Mr. Rivera walked in carrying a stack of music books. He stopped when he saw the two girls. "Is everything all right here?" "Fine," Tiffany said sweetly. "I was just leaving." She stood up from the piano bench and grabbed her backpack. As she passed Song Li, she whispered, "Good luck embarrassing yourself." After Tiffany left, Song Li sat down at the piano, but her hands were shaking too badly to play. Mr. Rivera set down his books and pulled up a chair next to the piano. "Don't let her get to you," he said gently. "People like Tiffany, they feel threatened when someone has a gift they don't understand." "She's right, though," Song Li said quietly. "I'm going to embarrass myself." "Why would you think that?" "Because I'm not good enough." "I don't have proper training. I practiced on a paper keyboard." The doubts she'd been fighting all week came pouring out. Everyone else in the talent show has been taking lessons for years. They have real instruments at home. Mr. Rivera was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Let me tell you something, Song Li. I've been teaching music for 15 years. I've had students with every advantage, expensive instruments, private tutors. Parents who push them to practice hours a day. He leaned forward, his eyes serious. And in all that time, I've rarely heard anyone play with the feeling you have. That can't be taught. But what if I make mistakes? Songli asked. Then you make mistakes, Mr. Rivera shrugged. Even professional pianists make mistakes. The question is, will you let the fear of mistakes keep you from sharing your gift? Songli thought about that question all day. Would she let fear win? Would she back out of the talent show? The thought was tempting. She could tell Mr. Rivera she wasn't ready. She could avoid Tiffany's mockery and the stares of the other students, but then she would never know what might have happened. That evening, after practice at Mrs. Zhang's apartment, Songli's father was waiting to pick her up, a rare occurrence since he usually worked late at the restaurant. "Dad," she said in surprise when she saw him standing in the hallway. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine," he assured her with a tired smile. "I switched shifts with a coworker. I wanted to hear you play." Songli felt a flutter of nerves. Her father had never heard her play before. Unlike her mother and grandmother, he wasn't particularly musical. He appreciated songs on the radio but had never shown much interest in classical music. "Are you sure?" she asked. "You must be tired from work." "Not too tired to hear my daughter make music," he said firmly. So Songli led him back into Mrs. Zhang's apartment and sat down at the digital piano once more. She chose a simpler piece this time, a Bach minuet that was short but pretty. When she finished, she looked up nervously at her father. His expression was hard to read. "That was beautiful," he said finally. "I had no idea you could do that." On the way home, walking side by side through the early evening, her father asked, "Are you nervous about the talent show?" "Yes," Songli admitted. Her father nodded thoughtfully. "When I first came to America," he said, "I was terrified every day. New language, new customs, everything different. But I had to be brave for you and your mother." He glanced down at her. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid," Songli finished with him. "It means you do something even though you are afraid." Her father looked surprised, then smiled. "Your grandmother told you that too?" Songli nodded. "Well, she's a wise woman," he said, "and she would be very proud to see you on that stage, playing for everyone. Just as proud as I will be." With 2 weeks left until the talent show, Songli practiced harder than ever. Every lunch period at school, every afternoon at Mrs. Zhang's apartment, even in the evenings on her paper keyboard at home. The music was becoming part of her, flowing more naturally each time she played, but Tiffany's words still echoed in her mind. Good luck embarrassing yourself. Would she fail? Would everyone laugh? There was only one way to find out. 1 week before the talent show, Mr. Rivera announced that all participants would have a dress rehearsal on the actual stage. "It's important to get comfortable with the performance space," he explained to Songli during their lunch practice session. "The auditorium piano is different from this one. It's a full concert grand. The acoustics are different too." Songli nodded, though the thought of playing on an even bigger piano in an even bigger room made her stomach twist with nerves. "When is the rehearsal?" she asked. "Friday afternoon, right after school. Each performer gets 10 minutes to practice and adjust to the stage." Mr. Rivera smiled encouragingly. "It will help, trust me." That Friday, Songli headed to the auditorium after her last class. The large room was empty except for a few students waiting their turn and Mr. Rivera, who sat in the front row with a clipboard. The stage looked enormous from the back of the room. Spotlights shone down on a magnificent black piano that gleamed under the lights. Songli's steps slowed as she approached. "Ah, Songli," Mr. Rivera waved her over. "You'll be up after Hero finishes his guitar piece." On stage, a boy with spiky hair was playing an electric guitar, his face intense with concentration. The amplified sound filled the auditorium, bouncing off the walls. When he finished, there was a smattering of applause from the few people present. "Good job, Hero," Mr. Rivera called. "Remember to check your amplifier settings before the actual show." He turned to Songli. "You're up." Her legs felt heavy as she climbed the steps to the stage. The spotlights were brighter than she had expected, making it hard to see beyond the first few rows of seats. The piano waited at the center of the stage, its lid raised to reflect the sound out toward the audience. Songli sat down on the bench and adjusted it to her height. The keys felt slightly different from the piano in the music room, more responsive with a lighter touch. She played a few notes to get used to it. "Whenever you're ready," Mr. Rivera said from the darkness beyond the lights. Song Li positioned her hands and began to play. The sound was magnificent, richer and fuller than any piano she had played before. The notes seemed to hang in the air, filling the vast space with Chopin's haunting melody. She was so absorbed in the music that she didn't notice people stopping in the doorway to listen. By the time she played the final notes, a small crowd had gathered at the back of the auditorium. There was a moment of silence, then applause, much more than she had expected. Song Li looked up, squinting against the lights, to see several teachers and students clapping. "Beautiful," Mr. Rivera said, walking toward the stage. "You've really captured the emotion of the piece. Just remember to take your time with the middle section. Don't rush it." As Song Li gathered her sheet music, she noticed Tiffany standing in the wings waiting for her turn. The other girl's face was unreadable, but there was something different about her expression. Not the usual mockery, but something closer to surprise. "That was pretty good," Tiffany said grudgingly as they passed each other. Song Li was so shocked by the almost compliment that she just nodded and continued walking. That night at dinner, Song Li's parents could tell something was different. "You're smiling," her mother observed, serving rice into bowls. "Did something good happen at school?" Song Li hesitated, then told them about the rehearsal, about how the big piano sounded, about the unexpected applause. And even Tiffany Harper said it was pretty good. Her father raised his eyebrows. "This is the same Tiffany who was mean to you before?" Song Li nodded, still surprised herself. Maybe she's not so bad after all. Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "People can surprise you, Song Li. Sometimes they just need to see who you really are." The weekend passed in a blur of practice. Song Li spent hours at the community center piano on Saturday, and on Sunday, Mrs. Zhang invited her over for an extra session. "My sister is visiting," Mrs. Zhang explained. "She used to teach piano at a school in Beijing. I thought maybe she could give you some tips before your big performance." Mrs. Zhang's sister, a tall woman with perfect posture and quick, elegant hands, listened as Song Li played through her piece. "Your technique needs work," she said when Song Li finished. Her voice was crisp but not unkind. "But your feeling for the music is excellent. Let me show you how to bring out the melody more clearly." For the next hour, she guided Song Li through the piece, suggesting small adjustments to her finger positioning, her pedaling, the way she balanced the volume between her right and left hands. Each change made the music sound better, more polished. "Thank you," Song Li said when they finished. "I never had formal lessons before." Mrs. Zhang's sister looked surprised. "Never? Then you have even more talent than I thought. Keep practicing the way I showed you, and you'll do very well." The final days before the talent show passed too quickly. Song Li practiced every chance she got, incorporating the new techniques she had learned. Her confidence grew with each session, but so did her nerves. This wasn't just about playing the piano anymore. It was about showing everyone who she really was. The night before the talent show, Song Li couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, playing the piece over and over in her mind, imagining what could go wrong. What if she forgot the notes? What if she froze on stage? What if people laughed? Finally, she got up and tiptoed to the living room. In the dim light from the street lamps outside, she sat cross-legged on the floor and placed her paper keyboard on her lap. Her fingers moved silently over the drawn keys, finding the familiar patterns of Chopin's Nocturne. She was so focused that she didn't hear her father until he spoke. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly from the hallway. Song Li jumped, then nodded. "I'm too nervous about tomorrow." He came and sat beside her on the floor, looking at the paper keyboard with its carefully drawn black and white keys. "Your grandmother sent this to you?" he asked. "Yes, when I was 8. She taught me how to use it." Her father shook his head in wonder. "All this time you were learning to play music without a real piano. That takes a special kind of determination." "Or desperation," Song Li said with a small smile. Her father laughed quietly. "Maybe a bit of both." He grew serious again. "Song Li, do you know why your grandmother couldn't come with us to America?" "Because of her health," Song Li replied. That's what she had always been told. Her father nodded. "Her health, yes. But do you know why her health is poor?" Song Li shook her head. "During the Cultural Revolution, when Western music was forbidden, your grandmother was caught teaching piano to children in secret. She was sent to a labor camp for 3 years." His voice was low and steady, but Song Li could hear the pain in it. The work was very hard and the conditions were terrible. Her hands were damaged from the cold and the work. That's why she can no longer play. Song Li stared at her paper keyboard, seeing it with new eyes. All these years she had thought her grandmother taught her because it was a family tradition. She had never realized the true price her grandmother had paid for music. She risked everything, Song Li whispered. Yes, her father said, because she believed music was too important to be silenced. That's the legacy she passed to you, Song Li. Not just the ability to play, but the courage to share your music with the world. When Song Li finally went back to bed, she slept peacefully, with the paper keyboard tucked under her pillow like a talisman. The day of the talent show arrived sunny and clear. Song Li went through her classes in a daze, unable to focus on anything the teachers were saying. At lunch, she didn't go to the music room to practice. Mr. Rivera had advised her to rest her mind and hands before the performance. Instead, she sat with Lily in the cafeteria, picking at her food without much appetite. Nervous? Lily asked. Terrified, Song Li admitted. You'll do great, Lily assured her. I heard you at the rehearsal. It was amazing. Song Li managed a smile. Thanks, are you coming to watch tonight? Wouldn't miss it, Lily said. My mom's coming too. After school, Song Li went home to rest before the evening performance. Her mother had prepared her favorite foods for an early dinner, but Song Li could barely eat. You need energy, her mother insisted, adding another dumpling to Song Li's bowl. You cannot play well if you're hungry. As Song Li got dressed for the performance, she chose her outfit carefully, not the expensive clothes that girls like Tiffany wore, but her nicest blue dress, the one her mother had sewn for her last New Year's celebration. She brushed her long black hair until it shone and tied it back with a blue ribbon that matched her dress. Before leaving for the school, she made a video call to her grandmother. I wish you could be here, Song Li said. Her grandmother's face on the screen was wrinkled with age but bright with excitement. I will be there in spirit, watching over your shoulder as you play. She held up her gnarled hands. Remember, these hands cannot make music anymore, but yours can. Play for both of us tonight. When they arrived at the school, the parking lot was already full. Families streamed toward the auditorium, programs in hand. Song Li and her parents followed the signs directing performers to a classroom that was being used as a waiting area. Mr. Rivera greeted them at the door. Song Li. Perfect timing. You're number 7 in the lineup after the dance group and before Tiffany. Song Li nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. Just remember what we practiced, Mr. Rivera said encouragingly. Take your time, breathe deeply, and let the music flow naturally. You're ready for this. Her parents found seats in the audience while Song Li waited with the other performers. Some were practicing last-minute moves. Others were checking instruments or costumes. Everyone looked nervous. Tiffany sat in a corner flipping through sheet music. When she saw Song Li, she gave a small nod of acknowledgement but didn't speak. The show began with the principal welcoming everyone. From backstage, Song Li could hear the muffled sounds of applause as each act was introduced. Time seemed to stretch and compress strangely. One moment, there were 6 acts ahead of her. The next, the dance group was taking their bows and Mr. Rivera was gesturing for her to get ready. Next up, the principal's voice announced over the speakers, we have Song Li Chen playing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major on the piano. This was it. The moment of truth. Song Li took a deep breath and stepped out onto the stage. The lights were bright, the audience a dark mass beyond them. She could make out her parents in the 3rd row, her father filming with his phone, her mother clutching a handkerchief. Somewhere in the back, she thought she saw Mrs. Zhang and her sister. Song Li approached the piano, adjusted the bench, and sat down. The auditorium fell silent, waiting. She placed her hands on the keys. In that moment, all her doubts and fears seemed to fall away. There was only the piano, the music, and the gift her grandmother had given her, and Song Li began to play. The first notes floated into the silent auditorium, clear and delicate. Song Li's fingers moved across the keys with growing confidence as the familiar melody took shape. She had played this piece countless times, on the paper keyboard at home, on Mrs. Zhang's digital piano, on the upright at the community center, and on the grand piano in the music room. But never like this, never with hundreds of people listening. For the first minute, she was intensely aware of the audience, of their eyes on her, of the possibility of making a mistake. But gradually the music pulled her in, wrapping around her like a protective cocoon. The auditorium, the audience, even her own nervousness, all of it faded into the background as the music took center stage. In her mind's eye, She could see her grandmother's hands guiding hers, showing her how to coax emotion from the keys. Music is not just notes, her grandmother had always said. It is a language that speaks directly to the heart. Now Song Li let her heart speak through her fingers. The middle section of the nocturne opened up like a flower, the melody growing stronger, more passionate. This was the part Mr. Rivera had warned her not to rush. She took her time with it, giving each note the space it needed to bloom and fade. As the piece approached its conclusion, returning to the gentle, dreamy mood of the beginning, Song Li felt something she had never experienced before, a connection with the audience. Though she couldn't see them clearly through the bright lights, she could sense their attention, their shared breath as they followed her through the musical journey. The final notes lingered in the air, soft and poignant before fading into silence. For a heartbeat, the auditorium remained perfectly still. Then the applause began, tentative at first, then growing stronger, louder, until it filled the space with a roar that seemed to lift Song Li off the piano bench. She stood up, slightly dazed, and turned to face the audience. Through the glare of the spotlights, she could make out people standing up, her father waving excitedly, her mother wiping away tears. The applause continued, washing over her in waves. Song Li bowed just as Mr. Rivera had taught her, then straightened with a shy smile. As she walked off the stage, her legs felt shaky, but her heart was soaring. In the wings, Mr. Rivera was waiting with a huge grin. "That was spectacular, Song Li. I knew you had it in you." He gave her a quick hug before heading out to introduce the next performer. Still riding the high of the performance, Song Li made her way to the classroom where the performers waited. Several students she barely knew came up to congratulate her. "That was awesome," said a boy from her science class. "I didn't know you could play like that," added a girl who sat near her in English. Song Li thanked them, amazed that these students who had never really noticed her before were now talking to her, looking at her with something like admiration in their eyes. Tiffany entered the classroom a few minutes later, looking slightly pale. Her turn was next. "Good luck," Song Li said as Tiffany passed. Tiffany paused, her expression conflicted. "Your performance was really good," she admitted finally. "I don't think I can top that." Before Song Li could respond, Mr. Rivera appeared at the door. "Tiffany, you're up." Song Li slipped out of the waiting room and into the auditorium to watch the rest of the show. She found her parents in the audience, and her mother immediately pulled her into a tight hug. "We are so proud of you," her mother whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Her father simply squeezed her shoulder, his eyes saying everything his voice could not. As they watched Tiffany's performance, a technically correct but somewhat mechanical rendition of a Mozart piece, Song Li felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in her own achievement, yes, but also a new understanding of Tiffany. The popular girl seemed smaller somehow on that big stage, more vulnerable than Song Li had ever seen her. When the talent show ended, the principal came on stage to thank all the performers. "And now," he said with a smile, "the moment you've all been waiting for. Our judges have made their decision." Song Li hadn't even been thinking about the competition aspect of the talent show. Just performing had been victory enough for her. But now, as the principal prepared to announce the winners, she felt a flutter of anticipation. Third place goes to Hiro Tanaka for his electric guitar performance. The audience applauded as Hiro bounded onto the stage to receive a small trophy. Second place goes to Tiffany Harper for her piano performance. Tiffany walked onto the stage, her smile tight but polite as she accepted her trophy. And first place in this year's talent show goes to... The principal paused dramatically, building the suspense as the audience grew quiet. Song Li Chen for her extraordinary piano performance of Chopin's Nocturne. For a moment, Song Li couldn't move. Had she heard correctly? First place. Her parents were hugging her. People around them were clapping her on the back. And Mr. Rivera was beaming at her from the side of the stage. Somehow, she made it to the stage, her legs moving automatically while her mind tried to catch up with what was happening. The principal handed her a gleaming trophy larger than the others and shook her hand. "Wonderful performance," he said warmly. "You've got a real talent." As Song Li turned to face the audience, trophy in hand, she caught sight of Tiffany watching her from the side of the stage. To her surprise, Tiffany gave her a small nod as if to say, "You earned it." After the show, the auditorium lobby filled with performers and their families. Song Li found herself surrounded by people wanting to congratulate her, to ask how long she had been playing, to express their amazement at her performance. It was overwhelming but wonderful. Mrs. Zhang and her sister found her in the crowd. "We knew you could do it," Mrs. Zhang said, hugging her. "With more training, you could become truly exceptional." Her sister added, "I would be honored to give you lessons if your parents agree." Before Song Li could process this incredible offer, Lily appeared with her mother. "That was amazing," Lily exclaimed. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone you could play like that?" Song Li laughed. "I didn't know I could, not until recently." "Well, now everyone knows," Lily said, gesturing around at the crowd. "You're famous." It certainly felt that way as more and more people came up to talk to her. Some were students she had seen in the hallways but never spoken to. Others were parents who wanted to know where she had studied piano. Teachers she didn't even have classes with congratulated her. For the first time since coming to America, Song Li felt truly seen. Not as the quiet Chinese girl who kept to herself, but as Song Li Chen, pianist winner of the talent show, someone with a voice or at least with fingers that could make people listen. As the crowd began to thin, Song Li's father suggested they head home. But before they left, Song Li had one important thing to do. She found Mr. Rivera packing up sheet music by the stage. "Thank you," she said simply. He looked up with a smile. "For what?" "You did all the hard work." "For believing in me," Song Li replied. "For giving me a chance to play on a real piano. For helping me find my courage." Mr. Rivera's eyes softened. "That courage was always inside you, Song Li. All I did was give you a little push." He closed his music folder and added, "I hope you'll consider joining the school band next year. We could use someone with your talent." On the drive home, Song Li sat in the back seat, her trophy beside her, feeling a happy exhaustion settle over her. The past few weeks had been like a dream, sometimes a nerve-wracking one, but ultimately beautiful. Her father caught her eye in the rearview mirror. "Should we call grandmother when we get home? She'll want to hear everything." "Yes," Song Li nodded eagerly. "I want to tell her about winning, and about Mrs. Zhang's sister offering lessons and everything." Her mother turned in her seat to look back at Song Li. "She will be so proud." "We all are." When they got home, they made the video call right away, despite the late hour. Her grandmother answered immediately, as if she had been sitting by the computer waiting. "Well?" she demanded without preamble. "How did it go?" Song Li held up her trophy, grinning. "I won first place." Her grandmother clapped her hands together, her face lighting up with joy. "I knew it. Tell me everything, how you felt, how you played, what people said." As Song Li recounted the evening's events, she could see tears gathering in her grandmother's eyes. "Why are you crying, grandmother?" she asked, concerned. "Aren't you happy?" "These are happy tears," her grandmother assured her. "You see, Song Li, when they took my piano away all those years ago, when they told me Western music was forbidden, I thought my music was lost forever. Even after things changed, my hands couldn't play the way they once had." She held up her gnarled fingers to the camera. "But now through you, my music lives on. It has crossed oceans and generations. That is the greatest gift you could have given me." Song Li felt tears prick her own eyes. "I wish you could have been here." "I was," her grandmother said softly. "Every note you played, I was there with you." Later that night, as Song Li got ready for bed, she placed her trophy on the shelf beside her bed, next to the paper keyboard that had started her musical journey. The contrast between the two objects struck her, one just a drawing on paper, the other a gleaming symbol of achievement. Yet without the paper keyboard, without her grandmother's long-distance lessons, without the hours of imagining music instead of actually hearing it, she might never have developed the inner ear, the emotional connection to the music that had moved the audience tonight. Sometimes, she realized, limitations could become strengths in disguise. Her family's inability to afford a real piano had forced her to learn in unconventional ways, to hear the music in her mind, to feel it in her heart before her fingers ever touched the keys. And sometimes, the thing that made you different, the thing that made you feel like an outsider, could become the thing that made you special, the thing that made people see you, really see you. For the first time, as Song Li drifted off to sleep, Chopin's Nocturne still playing in her mind, she felt something she hadn't felt since coming to America. She belonged. Not because she had changed to fit in, but because she had found the courage to show the world who she truly was. And that, she thought, as sleep claimed her, was the most beautiful music of all.